Tensions across the Middle East are rising rapidly as the United States increases pressure on Iran over its nuclear program, while military and political developments continue unfolding across the Strait of Hormuz and Lebanon. U.S. President Donald Trump, who is currently serving as America's 47th president, has signaled growing optimism that a possible agreement with Tehran could soon be reached. At the same time, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu remains in constant communication with Washington as Israel continues carrying out operations against Hezbollah in Lebanon. Fresh details have surfaced about a new American proposal designed to curb Iran's nuclear ambitions. According to reports, the framework would require Tehran to stop enriching uranium for an extended period, transfer enriched nuclear material outside the country, dismantle major nuclear facilities, and allow strict international monitoring and inspections. Iranian authorities are reportedly studying the proposal carefully, with an official response expected shortly. Addressing the ongoing negotiations, President Donald Trump suggested that recent talks had shown meaningful progress. If we don't do that, we'll have to go a big step further. But with that being said, they want to make a deal. We've had very good talks over the last 24 hours, and it's very possible that we'll make a deal, President Donald Trump said. His remarks came as tensions escalated dramatically around the Strait of Hormuz, one of the world's most vital oil shipping corridors, where nearly a quarter of globally traded oil passes every day. Reports from U.S. Central Command indicate that an Iranian-flagged tanker attempted to cross a U.S.-enforced naval blockade in the region. American forces reportedly issued several warnings before opening fire. The operation allegedly involved an FA-18 Super Hornet launched from the USS Abraham Lincoln aircraft carrier. The confrontation has intensified fears over stability in the Gulf region, where any disruption to maritime trade can immediately affect international oil markets and shipping activity. Analysts warn that continued instability around the Strait of Hormuz could send global energy prices soaring and disrupt supply chains worldwide. Meanwhile, Israel has continued military strikes against Hezbollah, the Iran-backed armed group based in Lebanon. Israeli forces reportedly launched fresh attacks targeting Hezbollah's Radwan units in Beirut, further increasing concerns about a wider regional conflict. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu stressed that coordination between Israel and the United States remains extremely close throughout the crisis. We are maintaining continuous contact with our friends in the United States. I speak with President Trump almost on a daily basis. My people and his people are in contact on a daily basis, including today. I will also speak if President Trump later tonight. There is full coordination between us and there are no surprises, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said. The statement underlined the strong alliance between Washington and Tel Aviv as both governments continue applying diplomatic, economic, and military pressure on Tehran. Israeli officials reportedly believe the American naval blockade is putting enormous strain on Iran's economy and increasing political pressure on the country's leadership. Since Iran relies heavily on oil exports to support its economy, tighter restrictions on maritime trade are believed to be worsening the country's financial challenges. The discussion also referenced an operation known as Project Freedom, which officials described as one of several strategic measures being used to pressure Iran. According to regional sources, the initiative was intended to weaken Tehran's regional influence while increasing leverage during negotiations. Some officials believe Iran may have miscalculated Donald Trump's approach. According to those assessments, Tehran initially assumed it could prolong negotiations indefinitely, but mounting economic sanctions and military pressure now appear to be pushing Iranian leaders back toward diplomacy. Reports suggest the latest American proposal contains 14 separate conditions aimed at sharply restricting Iran's nuclear program for at least 15 to 20 years. The plan would reportedly force Iran to stop enriching uranium domestically while requiring all enriched material to be transferred out of the country. Strict inspection and enforcement measures are also expected to form a central part of the agreement, ensuring any potential violations can be detected quickly. A strong warning was also delivered regarding the consequences of failed negotiations. There are two options for the Iranian regime. They can choose the pen or they can choose the sword, it was said during the discussion. The message reflected growing conflict Tehran warns that if diplomacy collapses, the United States could once again resort to direct military action against Iranian targets. Beyond the immediate conflict, the crisis is carrying major geopolitical and economic consequences, especially for China and other nations dependent on Gulf energy supplies. The Strait of Hormuz remains one of the world's most strategically important waterways. Around 20 to 25% of globally traded oil moves through the narrow passage connecting the Persian Gulf to international markets. Any military confrontation or disruption in the region could immediately impact economies across the world. Although the United States imports relatively little oil through the strait compared to many Asian nations, countries including China, Japan, South Korea, and India remain highly dependent on stable energy shipments passing through the Gulf. According to the discussion, the American naval presence in the region could indirectly benefit major economies by helping secure international shipping routes and maintaining stability in global energy markets. At the same time, rising tensions are reportedly causing increasing concern in Beijing. China, one of the world's largest energy consumers, relies heavily on oil imported through the Strait of Hormuz. Analysts warn that prolonged instability could raise manufacturing costs, disrupt industrial production, and place additional pressure on global supply chains. Inside Iran, the growing economic strain is also fueling domestic frustration. Earlier demonstrations over inflation, unemployment, and deteriorating living conditions had already exposed deep public dissatisfaction. Additional pressure on oil exports could further worsen the country's economic problems. Reports noted that protests had previously spread across several Iranian cities where demonstrators voiced anger over economic hardship. Security forces reportedly responded aggressively to some of the unrest. Experts now warn that reduced oil rev in EU could make it increasingly difficult for the Iranian government to maintain public spending and economic support programs. The ongoing standoff is also expected to dominate future diplomatic discussions between the United States and China. Analysts believe Washington may push for broader international cooperation aimed at protecting maritime trade routes and increasing diplomatic pressure on Tehran. Global energy markets have already reacted nervously to the latest developments. Oil prices have experienced noticeable volatility as investors monitor negotiations and assess the risk of a broader regional conflict. Shipping companies and international traders are closely watching whether tensions around the Strait of Hormuz continue escalating or begin to ease. Despite the rising pressure and military tensions, many officials still believe a diplomatic resolution remains possible if Iran agrees to major restrictions on its nuclear activities. The next several days are expected to be crucial as Tehran reviews the American proposal and decides whether negotiations can move forward or whether the region will move closer